Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Aaron, and in today's top stories, we'll be reviewing season 1 of The Morning Show, Apple's behemoth production that pays Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon $2 million for each of the 10 episodes, and that's just as a starting wage. It's the same $20 million salary that Steve Carell's Mitch boasts about being paid in episode 9. And this show certainly looks like it's got money to throw around. It gets them a stellar cast, including one of my faves, Mindy Kaling, in what I can only describe as a sort of recurring cameo that just feels completely decadent. But more than that though, the show looks and feels really expensive. It's rich and glossy in such an obvious way that it feels like it's got to be a stylistic choice, reflecting the wealth and the power of the world that we're dealing with. American primetime television superstars. I've just always enjoyed Jennifer Aniston in Friends, and I've followed her career since. And it's fun to see Rachel reunited with her sister Jill here, and I'm not immune to Reese Witherspoon's charms. I loved Legally Blonde, but I also have seen Just Like Heaven. As I said, the cast is really strong. And you know that's true when someone like Steve Carell is in what is essentially a supporting role. By now, I think everyone knows that the show was reworked to reflect the real-life world of the Me Too movement. Though everyone denies it's a retelling of the downfall of Matt Lauer from the Today Show, the parallels seem really hard to ignore. But the focus is not really on Mitch. It's primarily on the effects of his departure to that world, the impact of the vacuum he leaves, and how they tell the story of what allowed Mitch Kessler to happen. The B-plot is Mitch trying to deny, confront, and come to terms with what he's done. Start the story as late as you can. I don't know who said that, but that is exactly how this show begins. In the middle of the night, as Mitch is being let go, we don't get to see him in place. We don't get to make a judgment on his behaviour from the outset. We, like the fictional fans of the show, are left to question what was going on and who knows what. We also meet all of the characters under that shock and stress. We see the cracks immediately. We care and we want to know what happens next. I think an early problem though is the introduction of Reese Witherspoon's Bradley Jackson. She's not part of that world that's been shaken. She's a minor league roving reporter on her way to cover a coal mine dispute. She is being set up as the audience's eyes, our way into the morning show. We're on her side because she is, as we later learn, the truth teller. She is a conservative, but not that kind of conservative, more of a libertarian. Oh yes, and her viral video reminds us fairly frequently that she is exhausted, but we're never really sure why. Maybe she'd just been out late the night before. But for the story, she needed to do something to go viral, to start that plot point of grabbing executive Corey's attention. So she ends up interviewed on The Morning Show, and she has a tense moment with Alex. That moment initially stood out for me because it felt unclear why there was this tension. And I think on reflection, perhaps it's because there isn't really tension from Bradley's side. What we're feeling is almost exclusively from Alex's point of view. As Bradley talks about reporting the truth, Alex feels attacked because essentially she knows that she's a sham. Now here I just want to take a sidestep and I want to remind you that I do like Reese Witherspoon. I think she can be great. I don't though think she is great as Bradley Jackson. She feels somehow miscast here. Aniston is particularly well cast as Alex Levy. We believe she's America's sweetheart because she is America's sweetheart and she has been for decades. If I was told that Alex Levy's apartment was Jennifer Aniston's, I'd believe it, it's beautiful. Bradley is somehow supposed to feel younger, rougher, edgier than Alex. I just don't think that Witherspoon embodies all of that completely. Now, I don't think she's bad, I just don't think she has all of that added advantage of playing to her own personality within this world of celebrity and media success. When I'm watching it, I know that Witherspoon is one of the producers, and I know that she's selling her production company for nearly $1 billion. She just isn't scrappy, and moreover, when has she ever been scrappy? She succeeds when she's tightly wound and perfect. Legally Blonde, Election, Little Fires Everywhere. For me, it didn't quite gel, but I can really understand why she would want to play this kind of role. Now, the first episode is almost constant darkness and rain, except for that cold protest and then when we're in the studio. So is Bradley bringing the light to the dark? She's certainly being framed as the truth teller. Uncontained, raw journalism. She is the truth in the world of fake news. Levy is tired mainstream media. We're told by the network that she needs replaced, but who will it be by? Someone better, Bradley, or worse, some corporate shill. The characters then are well drawn in opposition to one another. Later, Corey has a monologue about people not needing TV news. We get the news however we want it. A little subtle promotion for the smartphone that Apple knows a little something about. And he also tells us that tech will buy out news and TV. Is this Apple showing their hand? He also mentions Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers dancing around on expensive sets, which felt like a slightly more subtle nod to Aniston and Witherspoon performing in their own very lush surroundings. Also in this episode, we see Mitch smashing a TV with a golf club. Hopefully they got that in one take. Alex traipses through the woods in the rain to see Mitch, and they mostly argue until he reveals that she was going to be replaced. And then Bradley gets an invite to a hotel from Corey. Not exactly the most exciting cliffhanger for a first episode, but the rest was enough to keep me watching at least. Episode 2 really revolves around the event. I hate how they talk about the event. It feels like the writing, and just not how real people talk about a real thing in their real calendars. Bradley has a shouting scene with Chip about something during her job interview. She shouts and gets angry in a quite immature way in the first couple of episodes actually. But then thankfully we lose that part of her, and I think it's supposed to both feel authentic and show that she isn't ready for live TV. But mostly I found I just didn't care because it feels stupid and Smart is much more compelling. Thankfully, Bradley does get smart eventually. Corey and Alex fight over her contract negotiation, and looking back, this argument tells us a lot. Corey can be cheap. We bought this award for you, he says, and Alex is willing to win at any cost. We're being driven to the inevitable climax of Alex's unauthorised announcement of Bradley as the new co-anchor of the morning show. A much better cliffhanger to keep us watching. In episode 3, everyone is going wild. They're trying to prepare Bradley for her first show the following Monday. Alex is dragged in front of the board and Aniston gets to do some acting with a capital A. She does a really good job telling Fred and the executives that after Mitch has been sacked, she has all the power and they're going to be doing things her way now. This scene feels classic. It's kind of like that first scene from Glow, as it should have been, and you only need to watch the trailer on Netflix to get that reference. But it feels like it's from Network or some other timeless film from the 70s. She's mad as hell and she's not going to take it anymore. And it's good. She's really good. But I also partly yearn to see how Glenn Close would have destroyed the set and burnt through the camera with this scene. Aniston was really good, but she didn't hit great for me. Unemployed Bradley doesn't know if she wants the biggest job in journalism. She does get smart, I promise, just not yet. Corey is the master of chaos and is reveling in it all. And we start to see below the line, below that headline, Mia's relationship with Mitch is finally mentioned and Daniel has had the chair snatched away from him. And we see that button under Mitch's desk. Mitch actually has a fantastic scene with a disgraced film director played by Martin Short, where he has to confront that his friend is a full-blown predator. But he still doesn't know what he is. Alex and Bradley go back and forth on whether they like each other or not, and as they prepare to take their seats for their first live show, Alex takes her hand, as Bradley has asked for, and tells her not to F it up. Which leads us straight into episode 4, where Bradley has a surreal, scripted conversation with her mum before announcing her abortion on live TV. This is quite an American problem. I don't think this would land the same way over here, but we do live in the world and we know just how huge an issue this is in America. We know that Texas has all but banned abortion. It's horrifying. So it's kind of fascinating that this show gives Bradley that backstory and then essentially leaves it alone. I mean, the impact of it blows up. It increases the show's viewership, though we'd never really hear much about viewer figures again. And she creates a huge social movement in young women demanding their rights be heard. And we don't really hear anything about that ever again. If only it were that easy in real life. The show doesn't really dwell on that storyline, which I am glad of. It was Bradley's choice, the end. She really isn't that kind of conservative. She is, however, Kelly Clarkson's favourite. And now Alex is really jealous. In another story, Booker Hannah has secured one of Mitch's victims, or Mitch's accusers. They have a whole conversation about what to call her. Hannah secured her away from their competition at Your Day America. Hannah is very insistent with the accuser. She seems very good at her job, very persuasive, which perhaps only really resonates on a rewatch because Gugu Mbatha Raw is just that good. It's so subtle. An impartial investigation into Mitch's conduct and the culture of the show is announced. Producer Chip tells everyone to protect the show. Protect him? But we discover that it has been set up to ensure that anyone but Fred takes the fall. At Mia's suggestion, or perhaps insistence, Alex gives Bradley the interview with Ashley, the accuser. And wouldn't you know it, Bradley goes off script and does the real journalism. She gets Ashley to implicate the working culture of the morning show, while everyone screams in her ear to stop. Everyone except Corey, of course, who just can't get enough. Alex is perhaps screaming the loudest amongst the powerful men trying to shut her up. Afterwards, she greets Bradley furiously. Bradley asks Alex if she knew, or is she accusing Alex of knowing what was going on? Either way, Alex ain't happy about it. Episode 5 begins with a discussion around a New York Times article that's coming out about Mitch. And this leads to him eventually somehow getting past security unannounced and roaming freely around the studio. We get our very first glimpse of Mitch's charm when he remembers Lindsay's dog and tells her she has to crate train. I don't know what crate training is, but it sounds awful and probably he should have been sacked from the show ages ago. This whole scene feels forced for the sake of writing and the story. But I just wonder, couldn't this scene have happened somewhere public, like Awful Claire's birthday party that happens later? How does he get into the studio, and why in that studio does every single person remain quiet? And then Bradley jumps in the lift with him. I know they need it for the plot, but it just didn't play for me. But maybe it's the writer's way of showing us that Mitch is still really powerful around this building. What do you think? Did it feel truthful to you? Elsewhere, Alex Levy is having a kind of piano karaoke party for people that know all the words to obscure Broadway musicals, to raise money for poor people to learn obscure Broadway songs. Cheyenne Jackson, that I only know from Drag Race, sings a song that I instantly forgot, and suddenly we're on the set of Dynasty in the mid-80s. Mindy Kaling, hurrah, is scheming with Daniel to tempt him over to Your Day America. This plot really never goes anywhere. Then that journalist lady that's doing a feature on Bradley arrives. She knows everything, sees everything, undercuts everyone, and never seems to publish a damn word. But she turns up at Alex's party and engages in a conversation that both actresses do their very best to add subtext to, but really it's all just text. This is not Alexis Carrington Colby and Dominique Devereaux discussing burnt champagne. Google it. Following that, Alex ends up singing a song with Corey, which seems to make everyone at the party, and him, and her, and us, think they fancy each other. And then it all gets immediately forgotten. But it does seem to inspire Alex to run off to see Mitch. Later, in a car somewhere, Mitch suggests that he and Alex could be dating now. They kiss. Cringe. And then the romance is spoiled when the article drops. As Corey predicted, late at night in the middle of nowhere on their phones, TV news is redundant. As Alex reads the article in the very midpoint of this season, something shifts. Mitch says she knew it all along, but she says that reading it makes it seem different. Meanwhile, Bradley has been at Awful Claire's party when the article drops. Mia has a fight with Claire because Mitch. Bradley gets a call from her dad, who she loves but can't speak to, has sex with a barman, and then goes back to her hotel drunk, where she gets into a lift with Corey, and the doors close on them very ominously. And immediately, in episode 6, we open to Bradley, unconscious in her bed, and Corey watching TV in the room next door. but he reveals that everything's fine, they just ate grilled cheese and then he slept on the sofa in case she choked on her own vomit. Is this us being shown how men should act? Is this normal behaviour? It just feels like a weird tonal shift from the dark end of the last episode. It's good and healthy and normal, but also questionable because we only have Corey's word for it, and Billy Crudup really looks like he's auditioning for the next reboot of The Joker, so he doesn't exactly fill me with confidence that he's a reliable narrator of the night's events. But then he has already told us that he likes his partners to actually be attracted to him. And he just sang an intimate karaoke with Alex Levy. Surely he'd never be that much of a rat. Alex, on the other hand, is being woken up by her husband, who wants a divorce. Oh yes, Alex has an estranged husband and a kid. The husband is weirdly Jack Davenport from This Life and Pirates of the Caribbean. Alex's family is a whole thing that feels messy and underwritten, and the kid we'll get to in the next episode because this is the Fires in LA episode. There's a great character note actually when Alex has just been on the phone to Chip saying she doesn't want to go to LA, but then quickly changes her tune with the husband saying she has to go to LA, securing her just a little bit more time before they have to tell her daughter the news of the divorce. She is manipulative. There's a very chilly atmosphere on the private jet because remember 2 episodes ago Bradley accused Alex of being culpable in Mitch's behaviour. When they arrive in LA, a lot of money has been spent on giving us lots of red skies. We're kind of told that they're slumming it in a motel, but I just kind of wonder if a really rough motel isn't quite what they're looking for in this production because it still looks rich. On set, Alex is sad about the divorce. Bradley's trying to get the truth of the fire. Rich people, like Fred, paying firefighters to protect their rich homes. Alex cries over some dogs live on air, but really it's about her divorce, guys. She and Bradley yo-yo back and forth to some kind of friendliness, and Bradley holds Alex's hair as she vomits, surprisingly graphically for Jennifer Aniston, into the toilet in her trailer. Awful Claire somehow becomes Bradley's assistant, I don't understand why, and Booker Hannah sees Claire slip into Yanko's room. I haven't mentioned Yanko and Claire yet, it's been a kind of secondary plot up until this point. They're the counterpoint to Mitch's sexual misconduct. They're a consensual partnership. Yanko fears that he might be, or at least perceived to be, taking advantage of the younger and less powerful Claire. Claire tells us that her father is so rich and powerful, she could still get Yanko fired at any time if she wanted. And I think they're really trying to make Claire particularly awful, just to highlight how self-possessed she is. There can be no doubt about her choosing to be with Yanko, because at least at this stage, we haven't yet seen how they got together. Across town, Chip is trying to cozy up to Corey by offering to help him bring down Fred. Corey lets Chip know that he's interested, but if they're going to take Fred down, they need to totally sink him, and it's up to Chip to get the evidence. The next episode, 7, starts with Alex and the husband telling the daughter about the divorce. Sidebar, it made me really happy to see Roxanne Dawson's name pop up as the director of this episode. She played B'Elanna Torres, a Klingon in Star Trek Voyager, and her post-Star Trek success as a director really just makes me happy. Back to the divorce announcement, but second sidebar, the daughter. We've seen her briefly before, and I assumed, honestly, that she was going to graduate from college, but we learn here that she's in high school, and I'm so confused when Hollywood casts fully grown adults as these teenage girls. It reminds me of the 30-year-old who played Liam Neeson's daughter in Taken. It's really jarring and takes me completely out of what I'm watching. This actress here is clearly in her 20s, and playing young makes the character doubly unlikable. Predictably, she blames Alex for the divorce, and we just don't care. But it helps Alex and Bradley bond again, and they agree to workshop how to announce Alex's divorce. Later, Bradley is speaking to Mitch in a park in the middle of the night because he wants someone to tell his side of the story to, or at least to take the network down with him. Bradley, the truth teller, says he's just looking to be exonerated, and she doesn't want any part of that. But what she does want is a part in taking the network down. We already know that. Mitch tells Bradley that he can get a woman who slept with him for a promotion to corroborate the network's involvement. So look, we're in episode 7 here, and the plot is really starting to ramp up as they realise that everything needs to start slotting together. Chip has a meeting with the reporter lady who, like Bradley with Mitch, sees right through him. These real journos are super smart. In the studio, Chip has a knee-jerk reaction to a comment made about Mia's relationship with Mitch and fires someone on the spot. A couple of older white guys in the control room make more comments, and while the cast are taking their new photos for the morning show family album, Mia grabs a mic and makes an announcement to the entire studio confirming her relationship with Mitch, but also then just saying she wants to stop talking about it and get on and do her job. Yanko and Claire are called to HR, so they agree to disclose their relationship. In her HR interview, super entitled Claire feels vulnerable and feels like her job is under threat, and she starts to think that perhaps they've made a mistake. The HR investigator asks Claire if she needs help getting out of the relationship. We're being shown that the Me Too movement is making corporations jumpy about all relationships. It's creating its own toxicity, perhaps. I feel like this is something that we've heard about with big corporations before, so it doesn't exactly feel new or particularly tied to the Me Too movement, but perhaps there is something that's been renewed with vigour. I don't know. Claire and Yanko agree to keep the relationship quiet at work, but they're going to go out for a public date later. Mindy Kaling is back, briefly, for Daniel's subplot ride to nowhere. What a waste. Okay, I don't think I can avoid it any longer. Alex turns up at the daughter's boarding school with pizza and then has a very irritating scene with this adult child. I would have preferred if Aniston was acting opposite the actual pizza box. She does a wonderful job in this scene, screaming expletives at her own child and still somehow feeling like the moral victor, to me at least. Maybe that's only because the child feels so badly drawn she doesn't feel real. I feel like this scene should make it into my top 5 moments from the season, but it's just not going to because Aniston is left to do too much heavy lifting alone. Finally, that person that Mitch alleges used him to get a promotion is revealed, and it's Booker Hannah. Time Travel episode 8 is the flashback episode, so this is how it happened. We see Mitch heading off to work 2 days before his birthday, but everyone is acting like it is his birthday. His family even seem to have some kind of birthday Christmas tree arrangement where the gifts are waiting out for him already. At the studio, we see Mitch in a full-on charm offensive, though I felt that his interaction at the desk with Alex is not as warm and friendly as we had been led to believe. He's actually kind of mean, and it doesn't read that Alex is taking it as banter. Later, Chip tells Alex that she's losing a regular section of hers to Mitch because he tested better. She's clearly not happy about it. Chip assures her everything will be okay, but we can see that he knows Alex is on the chopping block. It might be Claire's first day, and we see her spot Yanko on a monitor, immediately drawn to him and not seemingly drawn to his brain as she would like us to believe. Later, she initiates contact with him and catches his eye. We see Hannah now, a lowly booker being managed by someone who's become complacent. She's struggling to juggle her work and her personal life. It becomes clear that she's isolating herself, but she's able to pull some strings and get a much needed interviewee. Mitch notices and congratulates her, tells her she made the show better. Because he's turning 50, Mitch is also looking at himself and having some kind of midlife crisis. Chip, in cahoots with Mitch's wife, gets Mitch to the studio on a Sunday for his huge birthday party, including a decadent song and dance number from Martin Short as his soon-to-be seedy and sullied director friend. I almost wonder if Martin Short had insisted on this number because it doesn't really do much. The dancers do sort of highlight sexualization in this grim world, but so what? It doesn't tell us anything. Mitch and the seedy director have a heart-to-heart as the party is clearing up, and Mitch is feeling dissatisfied with his lot. Has he done enough with his life? What is his legacy? But before he can go home, news of a shooting in progress comes through, and this is the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. Presumably it's been chosen to ground the show in the real world. Mitch is immediately dispatched and asks for Hannah to come along, and tells Chip he wants Mia taken off his team. They've recently split up, and we know that his eye is elsewhere now. In Vegas, everyone is struggling with a tragedy, or at least a tragedy of some kind. Mitch's tragedy may well be his own personal issues. He goes for a walk and bumps into Hannah. She's really struggling with the emotions of the situation, and perhaps the earlier isolation that's been hinted at. Mitch comforts her and they walk through the city together. He compliments her. She asks him for advice on dealing with the trauma. He tells her that the one thing that always helps cheer him up is a certain movie. We then see them in his hotel suite watching Caddyshack. It's really not helping Hannah take her mind off things, and she says she's going to go. Mitch stands up and hugs her. He holds her. He begins to kiss her hair. He tells her he likes her. She's confused and frozen. She says she likes him too. He kisses her neck. He tells her it's okay to just want to feel good. But who is he really talking to? He puts his hand in her trousers and he rapes her. She's frozen and betrayed in an extremely vulnerable moment. He takes advantage of her emotional state and abuses her. This is not sexual misconduct. It's abusive. It's extremely uncomfortable viewing, and it's supposed to be. We see Hannah leaving in the morning. Then we see her at work the next day. She's struggling with what's happened. She walks down a corridor. Mitch walks past and says hello to her with barely a glance. A switch is flipped inside of her and she goes to Fred's office, tearful and distraught. It's clear to Fred what has happened, which makes us think it isn't the first time he's dealt with something like this. Before Hannah can articulate anything, Fred offers her a promotion. It's clear that her career is linked to keeping quiet. She accepts the job. In episode 9, we pick up at Hannah's doorway as if the previous episode was just a momentary flashback in Hannah's mind after Mitch has appeared at her door with no warning. He wants her to corroborate what she did to him. He admires her for doing it, using him to get a promotion. Is he really so clueless? He just wants Fred to pay the same price he's paid. He wants her to speak to a reporter, but she doesn't know it's Bradley. She can stay anonymous. The story is coming out either way, he says. She might want to control the narrative. What's kind of fascinating here is that he's trying to book the booker, and he succeeds. Hannah agrees. Personally, I really have to wonder if we'd had more of Hannah's story earlier, just how much better the morning show might have been. Gugu Mbatha-Raw elevates the entire show with her performance. This isn't a story from Soap Dish or Dynasty. This is a real human story with emotional consequences and a powerhouse performance. And introducing it in episode 8 of 10, it's just a little late in the game. So now cut to Bradley and Alex finally workshopping Alex's divorce announcement, and Bradley confesses that she wants to interview Mitch. Alex does not take the news particularly well, and lines are drawn in the sand. Bradley goes to Corey, but Alex goes straight to Fred. She agrees to meet the producer that Fred is lining up to replace Chip, who is going to take the fall when the sham investigation findings are published. In exchange, Fred is going to sideline Bradley, and Bradley's going to end up leaving the show. Later, Alex arrives at Mitch's to beg him not to tell his story. This is a wonderful scene. Two desperate people using every tactic in their arsenal to get what they want. She falls back on an emotional plea, and he rejects it. Alex says she can tell a story of how difficult it's been working with him, and in particular, a time when he took her back to his room when she was drunk in Chile. There is a real level of ambiguity in this story. Did it really happen? Did a version of it happen? Is she twisting it? Is she using her own truth and pain to play Mitch, or is it a flat-out lie? It feels really important. If it is real, then Alex is also a victim. She previously said that she'd let him get on top of her twice before. She has proven herself to be a master manipulator, so it could all be a lie. Either way, Mitch believes it is a pathetic lie, and it confirms all of his worst assumptions about the women that he's abused over the years, twisting and distorting something to make him look bad. So when Hannah confronts him shortly afterwards to tell him how that night in Vegas was for her, he has no sympathy whatsoever, and he tries to shoot her down. She says she tried to leave and that she was frozen. He sees that as a contradiction. Which is it, he asks. But we were there and we saw it. We know it's true. She did try to leave, and then he held her, and then she froze. He tells her that she's a strong woman. She says that around him, She felt powerless. But wanting to be left alone, she agrees to corroborate his story. Just before this scene, Chip has learned that Alex is meeting with the producer that's been lined up to replace him. He feels betrayed, which feels a bit rich to us, as he was involved in discussions to replace Alex. He calls her, and they have a conversation where they lie to each other about how fine everything is. It's a really enjoyable conversation. We know that they both know, but they don't know that they know what they know. At the start of this final episode, we have two plans afoot. One is to sneak Mitch into the studio and have Bradley interview him live for as long as possible until they shut them down, so that they can implicate Fred and the network. The other is to release the sham investigation, remove Chip, and then sideline Bradley slowly so Daniel can take her place as co-anchor. Maggie the journalist and Fred have a classic never in real life scene where they arrive at a restaurant, order their drinks, but before they even arrive, Maggie has shared that she's investigating Fred and she gets up and leaves. It takes me out of it because I'm thinking of the practicalities. What is Maggie going to have for dinner now? Anyway, this forces Fred to bring up the deadline for the investigation results to be released. Hannah's been getting calls from the network offering her a new job, and now Maggie is also chasing her via text for her story. Hannah has become the eye of the storm. The story really kicks off though when Bradley and Hannah meet up to discuss and agree to Hannah sharing her story. The show really pivots on this performance and this character's pain. Mbata Raw is literally, choose whatever superlative you like good. She is fantastic. When Hannah tells her story, it's not exactly as I remember it from 2 episodes ago, but it's truthful and it's traumatic. Bradley feels guilty for bringing it all back up because she can see the impact it's having on Hannah. Fred calls Chip to his office at the end of the day, but before that meeting, Fred is speaking to Alex, and he finally offers her the co-anchor approval she's been seeking since episode 1. She tries one last time to save Chip, but it doesn't work. And as they cross on the escalators, she can't quite look at him. It's actually quite poignant, and it reminds us that deep down in there somewhere, Alex does actually have a conscience. Fred fires Chip and, throwing salt on the wound, tells him he should have blocked the story about the private firefighters that saved his house, as if that would have given Chip a reprieve from Fred. Chip says that his show built that house and he can burn it down if he feels like it, which is a little bit heavy-handed for someone who is literally in the middle of trying to do that. Chip calls Bradley and tells her Mitch's interview needs to happen tomorrow, but Bradley is still really shaken from her experience with Hannah. She accuses Chip of just trying to bury the investigation report. We see Hannah on the street. She returns the call from the network agreeing to take the promotion. Is she repeating a pattern of behaviour? Has her silence been bought again? She turns, she walks away from the camera, and the screen fades to white. Never a good sign. The next day, after an earlier fight with Hannah, Claire calls her up and leaves a message apologising and saying she wants to see her. The next morning, she turns up at Hannah's apartment building, but Hannah is dead. I didn't like how much we saw her dead body. The cause of death is unclear, but there is a real sense of loss immediately. At the studio, the new producer is being announced when Bradley gets a call from Claire. She's totally stunned by the news of Hannah's death, so she interrupts the new producer to tell everyone the news, and we get lots of silent, slow-motion reaction shots. It's a really impactful moment. Hannah has been strong and capable, and she's been holding on to so much pain. She's really leapt into our hearts in the past few episodes, and while perhaps it feels inevitable in retrospect, it's still quite wrenching to lose this character, and this revelation changes all of the plans. Bradley, feeling culpable, cancels Mitch's interview. Alex arrives and thinks everyone is just sad about Chip. When she hears the news, she also feels responsible. Bradley tries to leave the studio, but Alex follows her down to the street and chases her as she's walking along. Finally, Alex loses it when a member of the public tries to take a photo with her, so Bradley agrees to come back to the studio with her. But once she's settled, she tries to leave again. This time, it's Corey who encourages Bradley to stay. He tells her she holds the evidence. She can't just repeat the pattern of her life by walking away. She needs to face it. Chip turns up at Mitch's apartment to tell him that the interview is off. And more importantly, Hannah is dead. He punches Mitch and Mitch fights back. Chip reveals that he was the one that released the original story to the Times, the one that kick-started the whole season with Mitch getting sacked 10 episodes ago, which actually explains why the opening shot of the whole series isn't Alex or Mitch or Bradley, but is Chip lying on his back, taking deep breaths and waiting for his phone to go. Chip then calls Alex and leaves her a message explaining that he contacted the Times to save her because they were trying to get rid of her. He knew if Mitch was out of the picture, they would need Alex, and that was what he needed. Back in the studio, Alex and Bradley are preparing to go live. Alex is still distressed and throws water all over the new producer. As the show goes live, Alex loses her cool and asks Bradley to take the reins. She starts pacing around the studio as Bradley dispassionately reads the headlines. Finally, Alex sits down and tells the audience they just haven't been honest. Bradley joins her and they start to tell the whole story of the culture. They implicate Fred, they share Hannah's story, and Alex takes on her own culpability. I apologise to many people, she says. To one person in particular, I was so unfair to you, and I'm deeply sorry, and I will do everything that I can to make it right. Throughout this whole section, Bradley is even and professional, while Alex is emotional and honest. If she would just scream that she was exhausted, we'd have a complete 180 switch from the first episode. Fred races down to the studio but is locked out. Finally, the live feed is cut and we see a screen in Times Square cut to a test card as observed by Chip. The series finishes with a tracking shot of Mitch sitting alone at the head of an empty table in his grand home. Well, we've done it. That was the morning show. It was a funfair ride. Not a roller coaster with lots of ups and downs and loops, but more like one of those longer, slower rides with something to look at along the way. But when you hit the drop at the end, it was all worth it for that final moment of adrenaline. We probably could have had more adrenaline throughout, but personally, I really enjoyed it. It was beautiful to look at. For the most part, the characters were incredibly well drawn and the acting was pretty good. It's also a really highly digestible exploration of this exceptional cultural moment of Me Too and what it reveals in all of us. It's not a perfect show, but it's incredibly watchable with very charming actors playing less than charming characters. And isn't that sometimes the most delicious combination? What were your thoughts? What were your favourite moments? Let me know in the comments below as we anticipate the next season. Season 2 is coming to Apple TV very soon and may well be out by the time you're watching this. As I understand, just like in the first season, they responded to the real world around them and have incorporated the pandemic into their storylines at very short notice. But what else can we expect? Can we handle Bradley and Alex bouncing back and forth between friends and enemies anymore? Is Corey in love with Bradley? Alex? Who is going to sing in the next season? Will Claire and Yanko's love remain true and pure? We know there are some amazing cast additions in Hasan Minhaj and Juliana Margulies. I wonder what we can expect from them. Do share your predictions with me. I'd love to know what you think is going to happen. Until next time, I'm Aaron. Feel free to like, comment and subscribe. You need the background lights on, don't you?